Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Mahasaraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Atha Shriman Narayaneeyam. Dashaka 86. The story of Salva and the Mahabharata war. Salvo Vaishmi Vivahe Yadubala Vijitaschandra Chudad Vimanam Bindan Saubam Samayi Tvayi Vasati Kurunstvatpurim Abhyabangshit Pradyumnastam Nirundan Akila Yadubatair Nyagrahid Ugraviryam Tasyamatyam Dyumantam Vyajani cha samaras saptabimshatyahantaha. This Dasakam is composed in the Sragdara meter, in which the verses have 21 syllables in each quarter. Addressing God Krishna, the poet says, Vaishmi Vivahe, during the wedding of Rukmini, the daughter of King Bhishmaka, Yadubala Vijitaha Salvaha, Salva, defeated by the Yadus, Chandra Chudat Saubam Vimanam Bindan, getting the aerial car Sauba from Shiva, who has the moon crescent on his head. Twayi Kurun Vasati, when you were in the Kuru country, Mayi Saha Tvatpurim Abhyabangshit. Salva, with magical powers, attacked your city. Pradyumnaha Nikhila Yadubataihi Tam Nirundan. Pradyumna, stopping him with all the Yadava soldiers, Tasya Amatyam Ugraviryam Dyumantam Yagrahit. He killed his great valorous minister Dyuman. Samarahacha Saptavimshatyahantam Vyajani. The battle took place for 27 days. According to the Bhagavatam, Salva was the friend of Shishupala, and on the occasion of the wedding of Rukmini, he along with Jarasandha was defeated by the Yaduvamshis. That day, Salva resolved before other kings and said, I will definitely exterminate the Yaduvamshis from the earth. One day, all of you will see my great power. After making this resolution, Salva worshipped God Shiva rigorously. He partook only a handful of ash as his food every day. God Shiva appeared before him and asked Salva to seek a boon. Seeking the boon, Salva said, Give me an aerial plane that cannot be broken by the Devas, the Asuras, the human beings, the Gandharvas, the Nagas, the Rakshasas, and the Yakshas. It should travel according to my wish, and it should prove terrible to the Yaduvamshis. When the boon was granted to him, Asura Maya made an iron Sauba Vimana and gave it to Salva. That Sauba plane was as big as a city. It was dark and could neither be seen nor caught by anyone. It moved according to the wish of the person seated in it. After getting the plane, Salva attacked the beautiful Dwaraka. From the plain came a shower of arrows, boulders, trees, snakes, and hailstones. A whirlwind arose, and dust was seen everywhere. Salva thus attacked Dwaraka and troubled its citizens. When the great Pradyumna saw the agony of the citizens, he mounted his chariot and came to fight with Salva. The warriors Satyaki, Charudeshna, Samba, Akrura, Kritavarma, Bhanuvinda, Gada, Shuka, and Sarana came behind him with their great bows. There were many chariots, elephants, horses, and soldiers accompanying them. A big battle took place between Salva and the Yaduvamshis. Pradyumna, with his divine astras, soon overpowered all the mayas of Salva. Dyuman, the mantri of Shalva, who hit Pradyumna with his mace, was overpowered and killed by Pradyumna. This fierce battle extended for 27 long days. तावत्त्वं रामशाली त्वरितमुपगतः खण्डितप्रायसैन्यं सौबेशं तं न्यरुन्दा स च किल गदया शार्ङ्गमभ्रंशयत्ते मायातातं व्यहिंसीदपि तव पुरतस्तत्त्वयापि क्षणार्धं नाज्ञायित्याहुरेके तदिदमवमतं व्यास एव न्यषेधीत्. Addressing God Krishna, the poet says, Tavat tvam ramashali tvaritam upagataha. Then you came quickly with Balarama. Kandita praya sainyam tam saubesham nirundaha. You opposed Salva, the master of Sauba, whose army had almost depleted. Sahacha gadaya te shargam abramshayat kila. He with his mace made your Sharanga Dhanusha fall down from your hands. Tava purataha maya tatam vehinsid api, and in front of you he killed the illusory image of your father Vasudeva. Tat tvaya api chanardam na agyayi iti eke ahuhu. Some people say that for a moment even you did not know that it was an illusion. Tadidam avamatam vyasaha eva nashedit. This wrong belief was opposed by Vyasa himself. According to the Bhagavatam, Bhagavan Krishna reached Dwaraka and found that Salva had attacked the city. He asked Balarama to protect the city and asked his charioteer Daruka to take his chariot near Salva. Shalva discharged an arrow on the left arm of Krishna, in which he held the Sharanga bow, and made the bow fall down from Krishna's hand. The angry Krishna attacked Salva with his mace. Then Salva, with his Maya, created the image of Vasudeva and cut off its head with his sword. In the Bhagavatam, Shuka Muni says to Parikshit, Dear Parikshit, some sages say that even Krishna, for a moment, got deceived by Salva's Maya. To say such things regarding Krishna is against their own words describing the God. The emotions like grief, delusion, affection, and fear can reside only in the ignorant and not in Bhagavan Krishna, who is beyond all these feelings. Chiptva saubam gadachurnitamudakanidhau mankshu salvepi chakrenotkrite dantavaktra prasabamabhipatan अभ्यमुञ्चद्गदां ते कौमोदक्याहतोऽसावपि सुकृतनिधिश्चैद्यवत् प्रापदैक्यम् सर्वेषामेष पूर्वं त्वयि धृतमनसां मोक्षणार्थोऽवतारः. Addressing God Krishna, the poet says, Saubam gadachurnitam udakanidau chiptva. Throwing the Sauba Vimana, powdered by your mace, in the ocean. Mankshu salve api chakrena utkritte. When salva was also cut by your discus. Dantavaktraha prasabam abhipatante gadam abhyamunchat. Dantavaktra forcibly attacked you and hurled his mace at you. Sukritanidhihi asau api kaumodakya hataha chaidyavat aikyam prapat. Dantavaktra, having a treasure of merits, when he was hit by your Kaumodaki mace, became one with you like Chaidya Shishupala and attained Sayujya Mukti. Eshaha avataraha purvam tvayi drita manasam mokshanartaha. This incarnation of yours is for liberating people who were firmly devoted to you from the beginning. According to the Bhagavatam, during the battle, Krishna with his arrows injured Salva and destroyed his armor, bow and crown. Hitting with his mace, Krishna powdered his Sauba plain also and made it fall into the ocean. Before falling, Salva, with a mace in his hand, jumped on the earth and tried to attack Krishna. Krishna, with a missile, cut off his hand and with his Sudarshana Chakra cut off his head. At that time, the angry Dantavaktra arrived there to take revenge for the killing of his friends Shishupala, Shalva and Poundraka. He held a mace in his hand and hit Krishna with it. Krishna immediately killed him with his Kaumodaki mace. In Bhagavatam, sage Shuka says to Parikshit, Tatas suchmataram jyotihi Krishnam avishadadbhutam pashyatam sarvabhutanam yatha chaidyavade nripa. Bhagavata Puranam, 10th Skanda, 78th Adhyaya, 10th verse, which means, O King, a wonderful subtle light entered Krishna from the body of Dantavaktra as all the beings were looking on. This occurrence was similar to what happened at the time of Shishupala's end. त्वय्यायाते तजाते किल कुरु सदसिद्यूतके संयतायाः क्रन्दन्त्यायाज्ञसेन्या सकरुणमकृताश्चेलमालामनन्ताम् अन्नान्तप्राप्तसर्वांशजमुनिचकितद्रौपदी चिन्तितोत प्राप्तशाकान्नमश्नन् मुनिगणमकृतास्तृप्तिमन्तं वनान्ते. Addressing God Krishna, the poet says, Tvayi ayate atha. Then, when you return to Dwaraka, Kuru sadasi jate dyutake, in the fraudulent game of gambling that took place in the assembly of the Kauravas, Sanyatayaha kila krandantyaha yajnasenyaha chelamalam sakarunam anantam akritaha. You with compassion made the garment of Draupadi to be endless. Draupadi was dragged to the assembly of the Kauravas, and she cried piteously and sought your protection. Ata vanante annanta prapta sarvanshaj munichakita Draupadi chintitaha. Then, once in the forest, you were remembered by Draupadi, who was frightened when she saw sage Durvasa, the Ansha of Shiva, who arrived there when they had finished their meals and no food was left. Shakannam ashnan muniganam triptimantam akritaha. You made Durvasa and the group of the sages satisfied after eating the small food of leaf from the vessel of Draupadi. The Sabha Parva of Mahabharatam of Sri Vedavyasa describes that when Yudhishthira lost everything to Shakuni in the fraudulent game of dice, including his wife Draupadi, Draupadi was dragged by her hair by Dushasana, the brother of Duryodhana, and brought to the royal assembly. Then Dushasana forcibly tried to pull the garments of Draupadi and insult her. At that time, Draupadi remembered Bhagavan Krishna. She repeatedly called out to God Krishna and meditated on him fervently, seeking protection. She said, Krishna Krishna Mahayogin, Vishwatman Vishwabhavana, Prapannam Pahi Govinda, Kuru Madhyeva Sidatim. Sri Mahabharatam Sabha Parva 68th Adhyaya 43rd verse, which means, O great Yogi Krishna, the soul of all beings, the creator of all the worlds, please protect me. I have sought refuge in you. I am troubled by the Kauravas. Hearing the cry of Draupadi, the compassionate Krishna showed his grace on her, and when her clothes were pulled, new clothes kept on appearing on her. Akrishyamane vasane Draupadyastu vishampate tadrupam aparam vastram pradurasid anekashaha. Sri Mahabharatam Sabha Parva 68th Adhyaya 47th verse, which means, O king, when the clothes of Draupadi were pulled, more and more clothes kept on appearing on her, and it was a wonderful happening. According to the Vana Parva of the Mahabharatam, once sage Durvasa visited Duryodhana with his 10,000 disciples. Duryodhana served him diligently day and night. The pleased sage said, O Duryodhana, seek any boon from me. Duryodhana said, O sage, Yudhishthira is my eldest brother. He is now in the forest with his brothers. Please visit him along with your disciples and be his guest. For the sage's visit to Yudhishthira, Duryodhana suggested a time when the Pandavas would have finished eating and no food would be left with them. Duryodhana thought that the Pandavas will be unable to feed the sage and thus incur his anger. He wanted the quick-tempered sage to curse the Pandavas and bring about their destruction. As suggested by Duryodhana, Durvasa went to the Pandavas along with his disciples. Yudhishthira welcomed the sage and said, Please come to us after your bath and prayers. While the sage and his disciples were bathing in the river, Draupadi became frightened as she had no food to offer to them. She prayed to God Krishna, who appeared before her. Krishna said, I am very hungry, Draupadi. Please give me some food. Draupadi said, the Akshaya Patram given by the sun god remains full till I take my meal. I have already taken my food and the vessel is now empty. Krishna said, bring the vessel and let me see it for myself. When Draupadi brought the vessel, Krishna saw a small piece of vegetable sticking to it. He ate it and said, may the all pervading Lord Hari be pleased with this. Then Krishna asked Sahadeva to invite the Durvasa and other sages for food. Sahadeva went to the river and did as he was told. Sage Durvasa and his disciples felt that they were very full and would not be able to take any more food. They went away without coming back to Yudhishthira. Krishna thus saved the Pandavas from a difficult situation. युद्धोद्योगेऽथ मन्त्रे मिलति सति वृतः पल्गुनेन त्वमेकः कौरव्ये दत्तसैन्यकरिपुरमगमो दूत्यकृत् पाण्डवार्थम् भीष्मद्रोणादिमध्ये तव खलु वचने धिक्कृते कौरवेण व्यावृण्वन् विश्वरूपं मुनिसदसि पुरीं क्षोभयित्वा गतो भूः. Addressing God Krishna, the poet says, Ata yuddhodyoge mantre milati sati. Then, when the preparations for the war and deliberations regarding it were done, Palgunena Tvam ekaha vritaha. By Arjuna, you alone were sought. Kauravye datta sainyaha, giving the army to Duryodhana. Pandavartam dautyakrit karipuram agamaha. You went to Hastinapuram as a messenger of the Pandavas. Bhishma dronadi manye tavakalu vachane Kauravena dikrite. When your words were accepted by Bhishma and Drona and condemned by Duryodhana, Muni Sadasi Vishwarupam Vyavrindvan, exhibiting your Vishwarupa or cosmic form in the assembly of the sages, Purim Chobayitva, agitating the city, Agataha Abuhu, you returned. According to the Udyoga Parva of Sri Mahabharatam, when the Kauravas and Pandavas made preparations for the war against one another, both Duryodhana and Arjuna went to Dwaraka and sought help from God Krishna. God Krishna promised to help both of them and said, I have a huge army of 100 million fighters. In my distribution of assistance, my army will be on one side and I will be on the other side. I will not touch any weapon or fight. Arjuna immediately said, Krishna, I choose you only to help me, even if you will not fight in the battle. Duryodhana was very happy to get the large army of Krishna to support him. Dharmaraja Yudhishthira did not want the war. He asked Krishna to go as a messenger to Dhritarashtra and convey his wish to the Kauravas. Krishna went to Hastinapuram and he was welcomed by Dhritarashtra, Bhishma, Drona and Kripa. Next day, he went to the royal assembly of the Kauravas and advised them to make peace with the Pandavas. Following Krishna, Parashurama, Kanva, Narada, and other great sages also advised the same to the Kauravas. Bhishma and Drona appealed to Duryodhana to make peace with the Pandavas. Duryodhana did not listen to any of them. He, along with Karna, Shakuni, and Dushasana, wanted to capture Krishna and hold him as a captive. Krishna laughed at Duryodhana and showed his great Vishwarupa to all the people in the assembly. In his Vishwarupa, or the cosmic form, gods like Brahma, Rudra, Agni, Adityas could be seen emerging out of his body. On his left hand, many heroic kings were seen, and Arjuna with his Gandiva was seated on his right hand. Blazing fire was seen coming out of his eyes, ears, and nostrils. All the people in the assembly were terrified when they saw this form of Krishna and closed their eyes in fear. The pious Bhishma, Drona, Vidura, and other great sages looked at Krishna with wonder and devotion. When Krishna assumed this Vishwarupa, the earth shook violently and the ocean waters surged forcibly. Then Krishna withdrew his Vishwarupa and assumed his original form and left the assembly hall. जिष्णोस्त्वं कृष्णसूतः खलु समरमुखे बन्धुघाते दयालुं खिन्नं तं वीक्ष्य वीरं किमिदमयि सखे नित्य एकोऽयमात्मा को वद्य कोऽत्र हन्ता तदिह वदभियं प्रोज्य मय्यर्पितात्मा धर्म्यं युद्धं चरेति प्रकृतिमनयथा दर्शयन् विश्वरूपम्. Addressing God Krishna, the poet says, Krishna tvam kalu jishnoho sutaha. O Krishna, in the battle you were the charioteer of Arjuna. Samara mukhe veeram tam bandhughate dayalum kinnam vichya. At the onset of the war, seeing hero Arjuna becoming compassionate towards his relatives and becoming troubled at the prospect of killing them, Ayi Sakhe idam kim ayam atma nityaha ekaha. You said, O friend, what is this? This Atma is eternal and only one. Atra vadyaha kaha, hanta kaha. Here, who is the killed and who is the killer? Tadiha vadabhiyam projya. So, here, giving up the fear of slaying, Mayi arpitatma dharmyam yuddham chara iti. Placing your mind on me, engage in this righteous war, thus saying, Vishwarupam darshayan prakritim anayataha. And you showed Arjuna your cosmic form and made him regain the calmness of his mind. The Bhishma Parva of Sri Mahabharatam describes that when Arjuna saw his relatives and friends in the battlefield, he was filled with great compassion. He told Krishna, I cannot fight with my relatives. I do not want to fight. I shall retire to a forest. Krishna wanted to give him mental strength and gave him the discourse of the great Bhagavad Gita. Then, when Arjuna wished to see the divine form of Krishna, Krishna granted divine eyes and revealed his cosmic form to him. Arjuna got enlightenment after listening to Krishna and said, "My delusion is gone. I will fight the war as desired by you." भक्तोत्तंसेऽथ भीष्मे तव धरणिभरक्षेपकृत्यैकसक्ते नित्यं नित्यं विबिन्दत्ययुतसमधिकं प्राप्तसादे च पार्थे निःशस्त्रत्वप्रतिज्ञां विजहदरिवरम् धारयन् क्रोधशाली वाधावन् प्राञ्जलिं तं नतशिरसमथो वीक्ष्य मोदादपागाः. Addressing God Krishna, the poet says, Ata tava bhaktotanse Bhishme, then Bhishma, the foremost among your devotees, Dharani Bharachepa Krityaika Sakte, who was solely engaged in the task of reducing the burden of the earth, Nityam Nityam Ayuta Samadhikam Vibindati, when every day he killed more than 10,000 people, Parthecha Prapta Sade, and when Arjuna became tired, Tvam Nishastra Pratigyam Vijahat Krodashali Iva Arivaram Dharayan, you giving up your resolution of not taking up a weapon and taking the Ari in your hand as though you were very angry and rushing towards him, Tam Nata Shirasam Pranjalim Viksha, seeing Bhishma with his head bent down and saluting you with joined palms, Ato Modat Apagaha, then you went away happily. According to the Bhishma Parva of Sri Mahabharatam, Bhishma fought valiantly with Arjuna on the third day of the great Mahabharatam war. Bhishma showered arrows continuously on Arjuna, and becoming afraid, the Pandava army began to disperse from the battlefield. Becoming angry with this, Krishna said, "O Arjuna, I will myself kill Bhishma if you do not kill him." So saying, Krishna jumped from the chariot and rushed towards Bhishma, and he was happy that even though his resolution not to take any weapon was broken, Bhishma's vow that he would make Krishna take up weapons was fulfilled. In Bhagavatam, Bhishma says, Swanigamam apahaya mat pratignyam ritam adhikartum avapluto ratastaha dhritarata charanobhyaya chaladgur haririva hantumibam gatottariyah. Bhagavata Puranam, 1st Skanda, 9th Adhyaya, 37th verse, which means breaking his own vow, which was not to take up arms during the Mahabharatam war, and to fulfill my vow of compelling him to take up arms. Sri Krishna jumped down from the chariot on which he was seated, and like a lion pouncing upon an elephant, rushed towards me with the wheel of his chariot in his hand, as the earth trembled under his feet and his upper garment dropped behind him. Yuddhe dronasya haste sthirarana bhagadatte ritam vaishnavastram वक्षस्या दत्तचक्रस्थगितरविमः प्रार्थयत् सिन्धुराजं नागास्त्रे कर्णमुक्ते क्षितिमवनमयन् केवलं कृत्तमौलिं तत्रापि पार्थं किमिव न हि भवान् पाण्डवानामकार्षीत्. Addressing God Krishna, the poet says, Dronasya yuddhe, in the battle with Drona, Hastisthira Ranaha, Bhagadatta, who fought seated firmly on his elephant, Bhagadatteritam Vaishnavastram Vachasi Adhatta. You bore the Narayanastra discharged by Bhagadatta, the son of Narakasura. Chakrastagita Ravi Mahaha Sindhurajam Prardayat. You concealed the rays of the sun by your chakra and killed Sindhuraja Jayadratha. Nagastre Karna Mukte Chitim Avanamayan. When the Nagastra was discharged by Karna, you lowered the earth. Tatra api Partham Kevalam Krittamaulim Tatre. There also you protected Arjuna, whose crown only was cut off. Bhavan Pandavanam Hi Kim Iva Na Akarshit. What all did you not do for the Pandavas? According to the Drona Parva of Sri Mahabharatam, Bhagadatta, mounted on his famous elephant, came to help Duryodhana in the great war. Finally, Arjuna killed Bhagadatta and his elephant also by his arrows. When Abhimanyu was killed in the Chakravyuha made by Drona, Arjuna was full of grief. He swooned, and when he recovered, he said, Tomorrow, before sunset, I shall slay Jayadratha, who caused my son's death by trapping him inside the Chakravyuha. Next day, Arjuna fought fiercely with Drona, and neither could defeat one another. Then Arjuna rushed in search of Jayadratha. The sun had begun to decline in the west. Arjuna said to Krishna, Take me to Jayadratha, as I have very little time. Arjuna's chariot raced towards Jayadratha. Duryodhana went to attack Arjuna, accompanied by a large force of soldiers. The Kauravas wanted to halt the progress of Arjuna and prevent him from meeting Jayadratha in a duel. The sun's rays had lost their brilliance. Arjuna very fiercely fought with Jayadratha and the Kauravas, who helped him, and then Krishna told Arjuna, When I say shoot, you must shoot your great astram at Jayadratha. Then Krishna covered the disk of the sun with his chakram. Suddenly there was darkness everywhere. Jayadratha felt relieved that the sun had set. He looked at the sun, which could not be seen. Krishna then said to Arjuna, Arjuna, Jayadratha has lifted up his head to look at the sky. You shoot him now. Immediately, Arjuna took his Pashupata Astram and cut off the head of Jayadratha. Krishna then withdrew his chakram, and again the sun began to shine. The Karna Parva of Sri Mahabharatam describes that in the great battle, Karna and Arjuna fought with one another very fiercely. Then Karna employed the Nagastram, the snake-mouthed, blazing fierce astram, against Arjuna. Krishna quickly pressed down the excellent chariot with his feet, causing it to sink a little deep into the ground. As the chariot was pushed into the ground, the astram could not pierce the neck of Arjuna and only took off his beautiful crown. युद्धादौ तीर्थगामी सकलु हलधरो नैमिषक्षेत्रमृच्छन् अप्रत्युत्थायिसूतच्छयकृदतसुतं तत्पदे कल्पयित्वा यज्ञं बल्वलं पर्वणि परिदलयन् स्नाततीर्थोरणान्ते सम्प्राप्तो भीमदुर्योधनरणमशमं वीक्ष्य यातः पुरीं ते. Addressing God Krishna, the poet says, Yuddhadau Tirthagami Saha Haladaraha Kalu. Balarama, who went on a pilgrimage at the beginning of the war. Naimishatchetram Richan, going to the Naimisharanyam. Apratyuttayi Suta Chayakrit, killing the Pauranika Suta who did not get up and honor him. Ata Sutam Tatpade Kalpayitva, then installing the Suta's son in his place. Parvani Yajnagnam Balvalam Paridalayan, then killing Asura Balvala who disrupted the sacrifices during Parva, the full moon and the new moon days. Snata Tirtaha Ranante Sampraptaha. Balarama, after completing his pilgrimage, came towards the end of the battle. Bhima Duryodhana Ranam Ashamam Vichya, seeing that the battle between Bhima and Duryodhana had not come to an end, Te Purim Yataha, he went to your city Dwaraka. According to the Bhagavatam, when Balarama heard that the Kauravas intended to fight with the Pandavas, he did not want to take the side of either of them. So he went away on a pilgrimage from Dwaraka. He visited many holy spots on the banks of Saraswati, Yamuna, and Ganga. Then he reached the Naimisharanyam, where many sages had assembled for a great satsang. When Balarama arrived there, all the sages got up from their seats and welcomed him. Balarama saw that Romaharshana, the disciple of Vedavyasa, did not get up and bow to him. Balarama got very angry and threw the tip of his kusha grass on him, which killed him. The sages told Balarama, O Balarama, we had made the Suta take this honored seat. Unknowingly, you have done a very wrong act by killing him. We request you to atone for the same. Bhagavan Balarama said, I will definitely atone for this sin of mine. In the place of Romaharshana, his son will narrate the Purana to you. With my powers, I will give him a very long life and plenty of strength. Again the sages said, O great Balarama, there is a terrible Asura named Balvala, the son of Ilvala, who periodically arrives here and disrupts our sacrifices. You please destroy him. This will be a great service to us. Then, with concentrated mind, you go to all the holy places of Bharatavarsha for 12 months. Then you will become purified of your sin. Balarama killed Asura Balvala by dragging him with his plough and hitting him on the head with his mace. Then taking leave from the sages of Naimisharanyam, Balarama went to many sacred places. On the day when Bhima and Duryodhana were fighting with one another with their maces, Balarama reached Kurukshetra and asked them to stop the war. Both of them did not listen to the words of Balarama. Balarama then returned to Dwaraka. संसुप्तद्रौपदेयक्षपणहतधियं द्रौणिमेत्यत्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं ब्राह्ममस्त्रं समहृतविजयो मौलिरत्नं च जह्रे उच्चित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरागर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्र किल जठरमगाश्चक्रपाणिर्विभो त्वम्. Addressing God Krishna, the poet says, Sansupta Draupadeya Chapana Hatadiyam Draunim. The evil Ashwatthama, who killed the sleeping children of Draupadi, Etya Tanmuktam Brahmamastram Tvaduktya Vijayaha Samahrita. Arjuna reached Ashwatthama and by your words stopped the Brahmastra discharged by him. Mauli Ratnam cha Jahre. Arjuna took away the gem on Ashwatthama's head. Punaha apicha Pandavanam Uchityai Astre Uttara Garbham Vishati. Then again, for the complete annihilation of the Pandavas, when Ashwatthama's astra entered the womb of Uttara, the daughter-in-law of Arjuna. Vibhotvam Angushta Matraha Chakrapanihi Rakshan Jataram Agaha Kila. O all-pervading Lord, you in the size of a thumb, with the discus in your hands, entered the womb of Uttara. The Sauptika Parva of Sri Mahabharatam describes that Ashwatthama went to the tent of the Pandavas at night and killed many people of their army and set fire to their tents. Draupadi was very grieved when she came to know about this. Bhima went in search of Ashwatthama. Ashwatthama invoked the Brahmastra and discharged it, saying, "Let this destroy all the Pandavas." Arjuna discharged a counter weapon and said, "Let this counter Ashwatthama's weapon." Both the weapons exploded in a ball of flame. The great sages Narada and Vyasa appeared there and asked them to restore peace. Vyasa told them that it was a very rash act to use the Brahmastra. Arjuna quickly resolved to withdraw the astra. Vyasa said to Ashwatthama, "You have done an evil deed. To compensate that, remove the jewel from your head and give it to the Pandavas." Ashwatthama gave the jewel to the Pandavas as told by the sage. The first skanda of the Bhagavatam describes that Uttara prayed to God Krishna and said, "O Jagadishwara, please protect me. A burning iron arrow is running towards me. Please see that it does not kill the child within me." Bhagavan Krishna pacified the Brahmastra discharged by Ashwatthama by his great yogic powers and protected Uttara to continue the lineage of the Pandavas. The child in the womb of Uttara saw that there was a resplendent person in front of him. The person was in the size of a thumb and had a very pure form. He had a charming dark body and wore shining yellow garments like a flash of lightning. angushtamatramamalam sfuratpuratmaulinam apicha darshanam shyamam tadidvasasamachutam. Bhagavata Puranam, 1st Skanda, 12th Adhyaya, 8th verse. The person had a crown and had 4 beautiful arms. He wore golden earrings and he had a mace in his hands. He moved the mace around the child. The child wondered who the person was. After pacifying the Brahmastra, the person disappeared. The child was the well-known Parikshit. Dharmaugam dharmasunorabhidadadakhilam chandamrityussa bhishmas tvam pashyan bhakti bhumnaiva hi sapadiyayau nishkala brahma bhuyam संयाज्याताश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरति महितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामम् सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्. Addressing God Krishna, the poet says, Chandamrityuhu saha Bhishmaha, that Bhishma who had the boon to die at will. Dharmasunoho dharmaugam akilam abhidadat, giving all instructions to Dharmaputra Yudhishthira about dharma. Sapadi tvam pashyan, quickly seeing you. Bhakti bhumna eva nishkala brahma bhuyam yayauhi. By his great devotion, he attained oneness with the Supreme Brahman. Pavanapurapate, O Lord of Guruvayur, Ata Purnakamam Dharmajam Atimahitaihi Tribihi Ashwamedaihi Sanyajya. Then you made Yudhishthira, who had fulfilled all his wishes, perform the 3 very great Ashwamedha yagas. Dwarakam sampraptaha. Then you reached Dwaraka. Tvam mam sarvarogat pahi. O God, protect me from all diseases. The Shanti Parva of Sri Mahabharatam describes that after the coronation ceremony of Yudhishthira, Krishna told him, O Yudhishthira, Bhishma is lying on a bed of arrows. He is an incarnation of Dharma. Go to him and clear all your doubts on Dharma. Get instructions on royal duties. Then Yudhishthira approached Bhishma, who answered all his questions on Dharma for many days. The Anushasana Parva of Sri Mahabharatam describes that Bhishma waited for the day when the sun began its journey towards the north and gave up his body in yoga and merged himself in Sri Krishna. Krishna evam Bhagavati manovag drishti vrittibihi atmanyatmanamaveshya sontashvasa uparamat. Bhagavata Puranam, Prathama Skanda, 9th Adhyaya, 43rd verse, which means Bhishma's mind, speech, vision and soul all merged in Bhagavan Sri Krishna, who is the soul of all.